Hey everyone, it's Nathan with Crown & Caliber, and today I am super excited because we are talking about this watch right here. The brand that we're talking about today is Grand Seiko. And that's a really big deal for us because here at Crown & Caliber we are finally carrying Grand Seiko, and that's been a journey of some sorts.
There it is, there it is, there it is.
I know, I can't seem to get over to the left, honey.
But we are here, and this is one of the first watches we got in, and this is a perfect place to start. This is the Grand Seiko SBGA011. But to most people, it's commonly known as the Snowflake. All right, so I know I mentioned in the intro that we are super excited to have Grand Seiko, but seriously, at Crown & Caliber, this has been a long time coming. And it wasn't just simply flipping on a light switch and saying, hey, we're here. It was a lot of hard work behind the scenes, but we are here and we are super excited because Grand Seiko is a pretty big player in the watch industry. Grand Seiko is amazing because they pretty much are doing their own things. They are a Japanese company and they have numerous technologies. The way in which they craft watches and make watches is deeply rooted in Japanese ethos and in culture, and it comes through in their watches. And maybe none more than the Grand Seiko Snowflake that we're getting ready to talk about right here. And as an aside, Grand Seiko, albeit it does have Seiko in the name, as of 2017 is a wholly separate company from Seiko. Now Seiko does make amazing watches, but Grand Seiko takes that ethos to the next level. And things like technologies and fit and finish, there is none paralleled to Grand Seiko. So what we are looking at today is the Grand Seiko Snowflake. And we're focusing on this watch for a couple of reasons. Of course, the Snowflake, and we'll get more into that later, but we want to start off with the movement in this watch. This is powered by Grand Seiko's spring drive movement. This is a Grand Seiko movement, their invention, unlike anything else. And this is truly decades in the making. They were working on this back in the 70s, and then it wasn't until 1998 that there was a spring drive watch available to the public. That's a lot of research, and I think that in and of itself speaks to just kind of this relentless pursuit of perfection that Grand Seiko believes in. So 1998, the spring drive comes out, and we're not gonna get too in-depth into what makes the spring drive wholly unique. That's gonna be a separate video because there's gonna be plenty now that we have Grand Seiko.
I'm counting on it.
This is a mechanical movement with an electromagnetic escapement. And this is truly most noticeable when you look at the seconds hand. This seconds hand has a constant sweep. There is no kind of jitter to it, even in some of the higher beat movements, like for example, the El Primero that beats at 36,600 vibrations per hour. You can still notice there is some jitter to the seconds hand. On the spring drive, there is none of that. So this is not a quartz movement. This is not a mechanical movement. This is a spring drive movement. And it is something that Grand Seiko has and nobody else does. So right there, line in the sand, Grand Seiko is saying, hey, we are doing something that we have invested, like I said, decades into, and nobody else is doing it. So there you go, 1998, Grand Seiko turns the watch world on its head with the Grand Seiko spring drive. And then 12 years later, in 2010, this bad boy comes out, the Grand Seiko Snowflake. And ultimately, why this watch is unique is because of its dial, and not just the color of the dial or the finish of the dial, but again, kind of this Japanese ethos and aesthetic about the design, and that permeates into the case as well and just the holistic design of the watch. But we're going to start with the dial. This dial is unlike anything else. Sound familiar? The spring drive? I mean, this is Grand Seiko at its finest. That dial looks like new fallen snow. Not in the maybe most literal sense, but it just evokes these feelings that it's sterile, but it's fresh, it's pure, it's untouched. It's just, I mean, it's something that you truly have to see in person. And the depth that's in the dial, the almost just translucent nature to it, it is, I mean, I'm almost speechless. You just need to see it in person. And that is really the beauty. And I also think some of the misconceptions on Grand Seiko where it can seem simple, it can seem plain, but the beauty and the intricacy is really in the detail. And so I've orated on enough about my love of this dial, a little bit about kind of the process that goes into it. So the dial is stamped, and then there are layers upon layers painted on top of the dial to create that depth and that kind of translucent nature. Things like all of the indices, they are hand cut by a diamond rotary tool. The level of polishing on those indices and in the chapter ring is astounding. It is, to call it a mirror polish almost seems inadequate. It is unparalleled. Kind of a side note, it is something that I really like about my Datejust that I wear, that the kind of high polished indices will catch the light in a way that it can be really easy to read, in lower light situations, because often very well high polished surfaces read as black. And so even though there is not luminescent on the dial, it is surprisingly legible in various situations because you have this really interesting kind of snowy white dial with these stark indices. Like I said, it is just gorgeous. Moving on to other parts of the dial, there is a power reserve. It is really well executed. It is down toward kind of 6, 7 o'clock, and it has a separate finish. It almost has kind of a smoother finish with what appears to be this very subtle fluting along kind of the power reserve indicator. And then moving on to the seconds hand. This is a beautifully blued seconds hand, and because of that spring drive movement, we said there is no ticking, so it almost is this just like floating blue streak that just kind of spins around the dial. It is mesmerizing in its own right, and it's such minor details that when put together kind of create this really unique package. In 2017, Grand Seiko and Seiko formally split. This predates that. This is one of the original Grand Seiko snowflakes. And so what you have is at 12 o'clock, it still says Seiko. And then there's Grand Seiko at 6 o'clock. Moving on to the case and the bracelet. This is titanium. Now, Grand Seiko calls this high intensity titanium. And basically what that means is it's titanium with a much greater scratch resistance. And it's not just a scratch resistance that seems to be improved, but just in how it finishes. The interplay between the brushed finishes and the high polish finishes is great. The high polish areas on the case middle, areas on the bracelet are so well executed that if you were just to look at this watch, you would almost think that it's stainless steel. Kind of that dull nature that is, I think, common with titanium seems to be gone with their high intensity titanium. And that's really only realized when you hold the watch and just how light it is. And of course, the case back does say titanium. It is maybe a little on the larger side. It is a 41 millimeter case and it's 12.5 millimeters thick. But that case design, there's a downturn to these lugs. I would feel completely comfortable wearing the watch. And I'm someone that has a smaller wrist, right around 6.5 inches. It can be a little, dimensionally speaking, larger, but not feel that way in day-to-day wearing. But I think because of that design, because of the fact it's made from that high intensity titanium, it hugs the wrist so well. And I would totally be comfortable wearing this watch. Guys, that in a nutshell describes Grand Seiko. And we think that the Grand Seiko Snowflake does a perfect job hitting those high points on what makes Grand Seiko so exquisite. Like I said, we are super excited here at Crown & Caliber to finally be able to carry Grand Seiko, and this is just the beginning of many more to come. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.